So the Morrison government has committed to going to net zero by 2050. You, amongst others, have said this is just the mere ticket to the room in Glasgow, right? This is, the bare minimum. What should Australia actually be committing to, particularly by that 2030 deadline?
Yes, well, the purpose of Glasgow is for countries to increase their national determined contributions of emissions reductions by 2030. Now, in Paris in 2015, we said we'd cut them by 26 to 28% from 2005 levels. We are in a position now to considerably increase that. Morrison has said that he projects that our reduction will in fact is on track to be 35%, but he won't make any commitment. And so the problem is, as the New South Wales Energy Minister Matt Keane said, if you are not prepared to make a commitment, it suggests that you either don't have confidence in your projections or you're not taking global warming seriously. Every government in Australia, state and territory, every business group, and most major economies in the world have committed to net zero by 2050. But we've got to have more action sooner, and that's what Glasgow is all about.
But even that commitment came after weeks of another round of fractious domestic debate, of horse trading politically. What does that say about the environment here for coming to an agreement like this? Is the hurdle to climate change in Australia vested interests, or is it purely economic?
It's basically political. It's a combination of vested interests in the coal and gas sector that want to keep on producing fossil fuels because that's their income. It is right-wing politics, crazy science-denying right-wing politics that has affected much of the National Party and the Liberal Party and has done for many years. And of course, it's right-wing media, mostly owned by Rupert Murdoch. And so you've seen exactly the same phenomenon in the United States.
What stopped you from being more ambitious on climate when you were in office? When you reflect on that time, does it feel like not much has changed?
Well, the political debate, I think, in some ways has become more irrational. I got as much done as I could, but I had ferocious political opposition, from the Murdoch press, from the right wing of my own party. But yeah, the politics have been really poisonous for years, and it is, and that's what's holding us back.
What do you see as the prospects for major, meaningful agreements being struck at COP26? Does the energy crisis that we're going through at the moment in large parts of the world affect that? Do you think that is one of the big stumbling blocks?
I don't think so. I think that the concern is obviously people. I think there is now widespread agreement that we have to cut emissions. The question now is how and when, and what the message that we've got to get across is that we do have the means to do it. You hear people say, oh, we need new technologies. Look, new and better technologies are always welcome, but we absolutely have the means to do it. So we have the means to have plentiful energy, zero emissions, affordably. So that's the big change.
What does it mean for Australia's standing and reputation if he goes into that room in Glasgow with nothing more than what's been announced today?
Well, he will, I'm sure everyone will be polite to him and smile and so forth, but he will not be received rapturously, let's face it. Everyone has been encouraging Australia to have greater ambition for its 2030 target, and we've squibbed that.
The climate piece aside, you've got Europe, at least for now, turning its back on a bid for an FTA with Australia. Beijing hasn't been taking our calls. That's a pretty big chunk of the world not wanting to deal with Australia right now.
I don't think Europe. I think we are definitely in the freezer as far as Beijing is concerned. Although that's been pretty counterproductive from Beijing's point of view. As far as the Europeans are concerned, well, obviously the way Morrison dealt with France over the submarines was terrible. It was shameful, and it's caused a huge amount of embarrassment, particularly in Washington. Biden has effectively publicly apologised to Macron for the lack of openness and consultation. But, if you go around double-crossing people, it will undermine your reputation for trustworthiness. And Australia has always had a reputation for being trustworthy. But after this debacle with the submarines, that reputation has been seriously tarnished. it'd be disingenuous to say it hasn't been, you know.
How do you salvage that? I mean, particularly with Beijing, right? So the inquiry into the origins of the pandemic
Yeah.
obviously didn't help.
Yeah, but look, I think with Beijing, the challenge really is that the Beijing has to, if you like, they've got to find an exit ramp. I mean, look, when Morrison said there should be an inquiry into the origins of the Wuhan virus, is that a revolutionary thing to say? Was that an appalling thing to say? I think it was this was a manufactured blow up. I do not understand why they overreacted so much. It is, and I mean, a big part of China's problem internationally is that it takes offence all the time. You know, can you imagine if the Americans reacted the way China does every time somebody criticises the United States? I hope that common sense will prevail. It may take a while, but it hasn't. I think China's international standing has absolutely been undermined by their own belligerent approach to foreign relations. You know, when Trump was president, there was a real opportunity for China to be as unlike Trump as possible. You know, to be consistent, to be measured, to be calm, basically just be as unlike Donald Trump as they could be. Instead, they've become increasingly Trumpian, if you like. And, it didn't work for Trump, and it's not working for Beijing either.
I suppose that takes me to my last question of this idea of, Australia's role in the regional ecosystem. I know we've spoken in the past about the role of Singapore, for example, being this, this middle country that's able to facilitate these relationships. Is there still a role for Australia to do that?
This is our region. We are a very multicultural society. We are the countries of this region, China, India, Indonesia, and others are all part of the Australian family. We are a very cosmopolitan nation nowadays. And so we're here, we're part of the region, and we have to build stronger ties with the countries in our region. So, we have to see the world, in my view, less as a series of spokes going into hubs in the imperial capitals in Washington and Beijing, but rather as a mesh. The object of Australian diplomacy should be to build that mesh and not simply rely on the alliance with the United States.